Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the podcast Kick the Can. My name is Paul Grinelli, and my son Matt Grinelli is producing the show today and every day. He'll take care of all the tech end of everything. Hopefully, we gain some traction with this. I'm going to be telling stories that I've been telling for a long time, and people say, "Oh, you got to tell these stories. People want to hear these types of stories," and maybe they're just tired of them hearing it. But we're gonna give it a shot here. If I can put some of these things into an archive, and in the future. People seem to like Bronx stuff and the neighborhood, Belmont, Fordham. People love it because so many people have come through that neighborhood. It's amazing, It's not a square mile, but it was heavily populated in the 50s and 60s, and so many people with so many different stories came through there, and they should be told. Some are not so good, some are funny. It's things that if you grew up in that kind of an environment, you can relate to. It's sort of, we choose the name Kick the Can because if you see Kick the Can on anything and you're from the Bronx, you might not have played it, but you've heard stories of it, or it was an urban game, along with so many other games that we played, Ringalivio, Johnny on the Pony, we pitched quarters, things that you just pass time. In between school and the summers, trying to stay out of trouble. Busting balls was a big part of growing up. It's what we did all the time. If they gave out degrees or college degrees, any kind of degree in ball busting, a lot of guys from that neighborhood would have it. There's just something in the air that would make people want to bust balls constantly. And usually leads to a lot of fun when you got those kinds of characters with crazy sense of humors. It leads to a lot of memories. What it is all about the memories for me. I was fortunate to, grow up where I grew up and meet the friends I went through my early childhood with, and even to late into life, still have a lot of the same friends. And now with social media, you certain Facebook pages, and you see names that you haven't seen in 40, 50 years. And when you say, wow, it's still alive. Oh, look, they got grandchildren. It's really quite fascinating. I'm kind of new to the Facebook thing, but I don't post a lot, but I do enjoy it. I do enjoy hearing about things and people reflecting on certain things and how everybody else would chime in. So it's like a collective group of people with remembering different things and different stories. Like I'm probably going to say on this podcast, I really quite don't remember that so well. And I'm hoping somebody will contact the show and enlighten me. You remember this, so I forgot that. It's my end game here is to really go back and forth. I have a core group of friends from the stroller, from when we were babies, and I'm fortunate to still have contact with them. So the memories they're corroborated. It's not like I'm making stuff up. People, yeah, I remember that, or we did this, and it was a lot of that down in the neighborhood in those days. Going to Mount Carmel was a priceless experience. You know, the stories, and you know, it was such a large community of people. Everybody almost went to Mount Carmel. Very few people, you know, some people went to public school, but 45 and 32. But, you know, the Mount Carmel stories, something I really relish, and the memories from there was a big part of my growing up. You know, it was a fascinating time. You know, my Mount Carmel years were, I think, 1960 to 1968. And the school is a Catholic grammar school. It was on Bathgate Avenue between 188th and 189th. It's a huge school, still there. I'm going to post a picture on the Facebook page of Mount Carmel. And as we move forward, whatever topics we do talk about on the podcast, I'll try to back up with some pictures to explain a little bit more. Because let's face it, not everybody is from there or knows that section of the Bronx, but they might know a person that went there or grew up there. So that's where I think the interest is too, because almost everybody knows somebody or has a story from the neighborhood there. That's when you just say the neighborhood, it encompasses that Mount Carmel, the school, the church, everything that went on there. And my stories are not, reinventing the wheel. People have the same types of stories, but I've been talking about them for so long, and I'm going to keep on talking about them, and now I'm going to put it someplace. I'm going to have it on these podcasts for everybody to hear. I was fortunate in a lot of ways, like I was saying, to start off, down the neighborhood. And I'm also going to be talking about my life as a young adult, high school, Mount St. Michael, a great opportunity for me to go there. And as a young adult, the things you kick around and, as the real world beckons, how you make money and your friends, the paths of life they chose. I'm going to reflect on all of these things. It's going to be a big reflection for me to talk about these folks, good and bad, and it's almost like therapeutic to say things and somebody can go, oh yeah, I remember that guy, or it's kind of exciting. And my son, he's here with me. He's like the driving force behind it. There was times, because for me, it was not only the Bronx and all of that. I was fortunate to stay out of trouble, and I navigated myself to where I started to travel with entertainers, with showbiz people, travel all over the world, and I have a lot of stories about that. So I'll be reflecting on all my showbiz stuff. People that know me, they know about this, but it's not that like I meet somebody at a bar or at a party or a wedding. Oh yeah, I'm Paul Granelli. I traveled with Frank Sinatra. It's not that how it plays for me. I was never, it was a job and it was fun, and but it's good to reflect on it. It'll be, and we're not driving the bus over people. There's gonna be no Frank Sinatra. I told you he was in the mob. There's none of that, and it's gonna be, the glass half full kind of stories that I think anyway. And as it comes together, I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. So I guess as soon as when I was born, July 29th, 1954, came home from the hospital right to 2505 Hoffman Street, apartment 10. And, if you grew up in any kind of apartment building in the Bronx, there was a couple of, most of them were one bedrooms, a few of them were two bedrooms, but they were small and, you had to be cozy, and all my friends, some people had two kids, but they lived in a one bedroom apartment. I lived in a one bedroom, just my mother and my father, no siblings. And, it was just come in, you pretty much step right into the kitchen, small living room, and small bedroom in the back. That little bedroom overlooked the White Castle, a classic place of dining let me tell you, to have a White Castle right on your block without having to cross any streets was kind of novel. It was, we ate a lot of White Castles, here to say, 6 cents for a hamburger, 7 cents for a cheeseburger. It was very convenient to walk over there. But we'll get into all the eatings that we did and all the different spots that we ate as the stories move forward. So from Hoffman Street, it's pretty much I lived there for over 20 years in apartment 10. And my mom, she was not from the neighborhood. She was from Parkchester section of the Bronx. And my mom and dad married very late in life, considering, maybe that's some of their contemporaries. I think my father was 40. He was born 1914, my father, in the Bronx. So both of my parents born in the United States. So there was... they were well acclimated to life in America. And I want to tell you a little about my mom and my dad. My dad came from, he had a brother and two sisters. He was born around the corner. Now, Hoffman Street was one block off Arthur Avenue. So my father was born 2500 Arthur Avenue. And we wound up living 2505 Hoffman. So it was literally right around the corner. But on Hoffman Street, my father's parents and his two sisters all lived on Hoffman Street, but between 188th and 189th. My father's brother lived around the corner on Arthur Avenue, close to where I think it wasn't exactly 2500, but it was one of those little houses there where he lived. So my father's family was pretty much all in a one block radius as they started their lives, getting married. My father's, his nieces and nephews, as my father was last to marry, he had tons of nieces and nephews before I came along. But it tended for a nice, close environment. Even when I came along, I had cousins that were close by, being that I had no brothers or sisters. My father, it turned out, had rheumatic fever as I guess, a young kid. And they didn't, I figured he was probably sick for a week or two, got better, but apparently the rheumatic fever damaged his heart, and then he had something called a rheumatic heart. So in the 50s, there was nothing you could do for a damaged, I guess his valves were damaged from the rheumatic heart. There was basically nothing you can do for it. So by his early 40s, after he had married my mom, he pretty much was disabled. We lived on the second floor, 2505 Hoffman, but after a little while, even the steps were too much for him to go up one flight of stairs. So that's how I remember him. Pretty much my early days, as my dad did not work. He tried to do a few things before while he was still able to go up and down steps. But basically, he was just, hanging around. He was my caregiver. I guess my mother worked part-time here and there, wherever she could help out. So it was a rough go for them in those early times. I remember my dad, he, like I said, born and raised in that neighborhood. He knew everybody. Everybody knew him, all his contemporaries. A lot of his contemporaries from the social clubs or the bookie joints that he would pal out in actually became, when they married and had children, those kids became my friends. Because you're talking, we lived in a 2 or 3 block radius of the whole world was right on those 2 or 3 blocks. So that was a kind of a neat thing to grow up. And then my father, and then I got to know as time went on, you get to see these kids. They knew my father. My father's main place was the Fordham Bears Club. If it was on the corner of 189th and Hoffman, which is also the spot where we played Kick the Can on that intersection there. And he was Little Tony, because there was probably like 40 different Tonys in the club. So he was known, and he was single, like I said, for a good part of his life. So my father had a nice car. He dressed well, and he worked. He was a carpenter. So that was his whole world, But when he couldn't work anymore, like I said, he would be watching me. And, I don't have that many memories of like the day-to-day activities, but he was there until till his health really started to go bad. That was probably around, excuse me, maybe early 60s, to where oxygen tanks had to come to the house and no more going up and down the steps. But he would help me with my homework. I remember that. And, and then right before my eyes and my mom's eyes, my father was getting worse and worse, and nothing they could do. Like I said, the technology was not anywhere near it is today for heart-to-heart problems. He, if I remember right, I remember like some of my aunts and uncles say, even my mom, that my father they would treat him with penicillin, if you could believe it or not. Penicillin, the miracle drug of the 50s. So the penicillin did not help his heart, and it was not good for kidneys, liver, and everything else. So needless to say, it went bad quick for my dad. But I remember him, as a young man, he would have to come to terms. He knew that it wasn't going to be good for him and me, moving forward. So he's still he was a street guy, and he wasn't gonna, did the best he could right to the end for me and my mom. And I'm gonna, moving forward, when we get into some of the Mount Carmel stories, I'm gonna ask folks to what they recommend, what they remember about me being the kid in 4th grade that lost his father. So that's I remember it, but I'm going to ask people what they remember, because I became that guy. As school went on, it was only 4th grade till 8th grade. I was the guy without a father. So I had to wear that, and it wasn't bad. I'll elaborate more on the support network that I got from this little community. 1 or 2 blocks, Hoffman Street, 189th. I'm going to really tell some nice stories about my friends and their parents, who just spot on for me anyway. So, so my mom had to deal with that. She's another bad luck specialist, my mother. Apparently, from an early age, she was engaged to be married before World War II, and her fiance went off to the war, and it would have been better if they would have said he was killed in action or something more permanent, but he was missing in action. Like the worst thing you could really have. So here's my mom, probably all through her 20s, carried a torch. Maybe this guy's coming back. Maybe this guy's coming back. Never came back, and that was rough for my mother. She that was a big hit for her emotionally, So I think she just went through life. She still lived home, worked, but trudged along, and until she met my father. And I would say my mom was probably about 5 years younger than my dad. So my mom was well into her 30s when she got married and had me. So things were on a roll. I don't know the story about how they met, my mom and dad, but it worked out for them. They got married, have plenty of pictures. And then I came along, and it was going okay for only a short while, and then my father got sick. So it put a real hitch into the whole thing. There was just a matter of surviving, basic stuff, pay the rent, food, that kind of stuff. So naturally, my father passed away in 1964. My mother she was born in 22. So she was in her early 40s, widow, in the neighborhood, going to try to raise a 10-year-old. So she had it rough continuously from her early days with this fiance in the war, now being a widower, going to raise this kid by herself on Hoffman Street. Big challenge for her. As for anybody, She did the best she could, my mom, and I think I turned out all right as time went on. But she was just one of those hard luck cases, my mother. Right along, right to the very end. Once I became an adult, I was, I tried to move out of the Hoffman Street apartment as soon as I could, which was almost unheard of back then. Most guys stayed home until they got married. You know, they went from their house with their parents to the church and got married. So I had the circumstances. Had earned money right away, and wanted a car, and then I wanted to rent. So I had to get out there and do it. The best I could. Had some good guidance, but not too bad. I was able to stay on a good track where kept my nose clean, as they say. And my mother, the bad luck just stuck right to the end for her too. She had a bad outcome. She wound up remarrying to some, I guess, born-again Christian or something like that. My mother, she wanted companionship, so she bought into this guy and the religion, and she was happy enough, I would say. By then I was already well into my 30s and had my own life. But she got sick, my mother, and apparently she had something on her breast, but did not go to the doctor. So she must have had a cyst or a tumor or something on her breast. Did not go to the doctor. Whether this husband of hers, "Oh, you're all right," or so my mother didn't do good there. Apparently her breast was oozing. That's how far along. I hate to share all this, but needless to say, the breast cancer was, it was a battle for 2 or 3 more years, and not a good outcome. She was early 70s when she passed away. But my mother's bad luck carried right to the very end. She passed away the same day that my first son was born, March 19th, 1993. So my mother couldn't even be a grandmother for one day. She passed away at 7:30 in the morning. My son was born at 11 o'clock at night. So if you just, I can't say it enough that this woman had a raw deal and always got dealt some bad cards, and that in time, these kinds of things, it molds me. Lose your dad, lose your mom. I'm getting ready to, I already outlived my father by 20 years. So now in the next year or two, I'm going to outlive my mother. It's one of those not so good facts of life. But it's nice to see, up until a little while ago, some of my friends and my contemporaries still had their parents. When, when they had grandchildren. So their parents got to see grandchildren, so that sort of molded me emotionally for who I am and how I look at things, and it's not a bad thing. Bad things happen, it could always be worse. I'm still here. I'm pretty healthy. I got a good gig. I got a wife. I got 2 boys. I got a grandchild now. So I'm really advancing way further than my parents ever did, So as this podcast rolls forward, like I said, I'm going to be touching on a lot of different things. Things that people might say, "Oh, who the hell wants to hear you, Paulie, listen to these butchie stories?" You'd be surprised, Butchie store. I worked there as a stock boy, and it was a fun pisser place every day. And I had great stories from there, and the characters that went in and out, and plus my friends and the cast of characters, and what we did as young adults in Mount Carmel. And I hope it's enjoyable for people to listen to these things, and it's going to be a work in progress. My public speaking, something I don't even think I like the sound of my own voice. So I'm really going to be asking for people to chin up and listen to me and give me the feedback I need and help me along here. I will have people coming on. Maybe definitely in the first few shows. I'm going to try for every show to answer emails. Have people on that can, from all eras, from when naturally my core group of guys and girls that were coming through the neighborhood and can reflect on things. And then even people that, when I traveled with the entertainers, there's some folks out there that, might want to help me out and put their 2 cents in on my stories, So I don't know where this is going to go or how long I could do this, but I'm going to give it a real good shot. And we're going to try to put a few episodes in the books and then publish them. So that's going to be the plan. So I'm going to ask, like, for the folks, if you listen to the show, start to follow it. Hopefully you like it. It's going to be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And if you want to contact the show, the email is already up. It's kickthecanpod@gmail.com. And I'm going to start weaseling a few pictures up on the Facebook page even before I publish the episodes. We're sort of kicking it around. When we wrap this one up today, I'm going to talk to Matt. He's going to listen to it for a few times. Maybe we'll throw it out there, get the feedback right away. Maybe we'll publish it, because it looks like for the next couple of weeks we're wrapped up in some personal stuff. But by April, I'd hope to have a few more of a routine, maybe at least one a month. I think that's not that ambitious. One a month should be doable. And then I plan on retiring from my job, and we'll see where it goes, if maybe this becomes like a little job for me. So enjoy it. Looking forward to the feedback. And maybe one day we'll have a little a bus trip down the neighborhood and get a game of Kick the Can going. We'll have to stop the traffic, I'm sure, but my wheels are spinning, and I'm going to be relying on my you guys to give me some ideas and carry me along with these stories. So that's it for now from the Kick the Can podcast. Don't forget, I forgot to mention today we're sponsored by Riggins Crab House in Lantana, Florida. You like seafood, you like crabs, that's where you want to go when you're in Florida. So we're fortunate enough to have the sponsor, and we'll see you next time.